So, hello and welcome back yet again. It is time for another evening with George Barr McCutcheon and his novel Beverly of Graustark, where it seemed like when we left the last chapter, the jig is pretty well up. I mean, maybe Baldos, our goat herder who is evidently wanted, still thinks that Beverly is a princess, but obviously the general who she was going to see, this Baron Dangloss, already knows who she is. So we still have a lot of book left, a whole lot of book left. So I am sure that there is definitely more that is coming. So, without too much further ado, let's just see what's going to happen in Chapter 9 of Beverly of Graustark by George Barr McCutcheon. Yeah, that is his name. And Chapter 9 is titled The Redoubtable Dangloss. Dangloss is such an interesting name. Beverly's eyes showed her astonishment. Baron Dangloss courteously placed a chair for her and asked her to be seated. "We were expecting you, Miss Calhoun," he explained. "Her Royal Highness left St. Petersburg but a few hours after your departure, unfortunately having missed you." "You don't mean to say that the princess tried to find me in St. Petersburg?" cried Beverly, in both wonder and delight. "That was one of the purposes of her visit," he said brusquely. "Oh, how jolly!" cried Beverly, her gray eyes sparkling. The grim old captain was startled for the smallest fraction of a minute, but at once fell to admiring the fresh, eager face of his visitor. "The public at large is under the impression that she visited the Tsar on matters of importance," he said with a condescending smile. "And it really was of no importance at all? That's what you mean?" said Beverly, smiling back securely. "Your message, informing Her Highness of your presence in St. Petersburg, had no sooner arrived than she set forth to meet you in that city, much against the advice of her counselors. I will admit that she had other business there, but it could have waited. You see, Miss Calhoun, it was a great risk at this particular time. A misfortune means disaster now, but Providence was her friend. She arrived safely in Ganlook not an hour ago." "Really? Oh, Baron Dangloss, where is she?" cried the excited American girl. "For the night, she is stopping with Countess Rallowitz. A force of men, but not those who you met at the gates, have just been dispatched at her command to search for you in the lower pass. You took the most dangerous road, Miss Calhoun. I'm amazed you came through it safely." "The Russians chose the lower pass. I don't know why. Of course, I was quite ignorant. However, we met neither brigands or soldiers, Axphian or Graustarkians. I encountered nothing more alarming than a mountain lion. And that, Baron Dangloss, recalls me to the sense of duty that I've been neglecting. A poor wanderer in the hills defended me against that beast and was terribly wounded. He needs to be taken to a hospital at once, sir, where he can have proper care." Whereupon, at his request, Beverly hurriedly related the story of that trying journey through the mountains, not forgetting to paint the courage of Baldos in glowing colors. The chief was deeply interested in the story of the goat hunter and his party. There was an odd gleam of satisfaction in his eyes, but Beverly didn't see that. "You will see that he has immediate attention, won't you?" she implored. He will have our deepest consideration. You know, I'm rather interested because I shot him, just as if it wasn't enough that his legs were being torn up by that lion at the same time. He ought not even walk, Baron Dangloss. If you don't mind, I would suggest an ambulance, hurried Beverly. The Baron could not conceal the smile that her eagerness inspired in him. Really, she said, he is in serious condition. I think he needs some quinine and some whiskey and... He will have the very best of care, interrupted the captain. You leave him to me, Miss Calhoun. Now let me tell you something, she said, after she reflected for a moment. You must not pay any attention to anything that he says. He's liable to be delirious and talk in a terrible sort of way. You know delirious people never talk rational. Beverly was loyally trying to protect Baldos, the hunted, against any incriminating statements that he might make. Quite right, Miss Calhoun, said the Baron gravely. And now I'd like to go to the princess, said Beverly, absolutely sure of herself. You know we're great friends, she and I. I've sent a messenger to announce your arrival. She'll be expecting you. Beverly looked around the room, perplexed. But there hasn't been a messenger here, she said. He left a few minutes before you came. I knew who it was that came knocking at our gates, even though she traveled as Princess Yetive of Graustark. Oh, that reminds me, Baron Dangloss. Baldo still thinks I'm the princess. Is it necessary to, tell him the truth? Just now, I mean. I'm sure that he'll rest much easier if he doesn't know different. As far as I'm concerned, Miss Calhoun, he will always regard you as a queen, said Dangloss. Thank you. That is so nice of you. A man in a uniform entered after knocking at the door. He saluted his commander and uttered a few words in their language. Her Royal Highness is awaiting you at the home of the Countess, Miss Calhoun. A detail of men will escort you and your servant to her place. Now, please, Baron Dangloss, pleaded Beverly, you be nice to him. You know it hurts him to walk. Could you have him carried to the doctor? If he'll allow it, said the Baron. Beverly hurried into the outer room after giving the Baron a smile that he never forgot. Baldos looked up eager, anxious. It's all right, she said, in a quiet voice, pausing for a moment next to his chair. Don't get up. Goodbye, but I'll come to see you tomorrow. Don't be in the least bit disturbed. Baron Dangloss has his instructions. Impulsively, she gave him her hand, which he respectfully raised to his lips, and then Beverly followed Aunt Fanny and was gone. Almost immediately, Baldos was requested to present himself before Baron Dangloss in the adjoining room. Refusing to be carried, Baldos resolutely strode through the door and stood before the grim old captain of the police with an easy, confident smile on his face. The black patch once again covered his eye with defiant assertiveness. They tell me that you are Baldos, a goat hunter, said the Baron Dangloss. Yes. And you were hurt in defending one who is of much consequence in Graustark. Sit down, my good fellow. Baldos's eye gleamed coldly for an instant, then he sank into a chair. Well, admitting that you have done Graustark a great service, I am obliged to tell you that I, at least, know you to be other than what you say. You are not a goat hunter, and Baldos is not your name, am I right? You've had instructions from your sovereign, Baron Dangloss. Did they include a command to cross-examine me? Said Baldos. The general hesitated for a full minute. They did not. I take the liberty of inquiring on my own. Very well, sir, said Baldos. Intel you have the right to question me. I am Baldos, and I am a goat hunter. I think I am here to get surgical treatment. You decline to tell me anything about yourself? Only that I am injured and need relief. Perhaps I know more about you than you suspect, sir, said the Baron. I am not in the least interested, Baron Dangloss, in what you know. The princess brought me into Ganlook, and I have her promise of help and protection while I'm here. That is all I have to say, except that I have implicit faith in her word. Baron Dangloss sat watching him in silence for a while. No one but himself knew what was going on in his shrewd mind. Finally he rose, and he approached the proud fellow who was dressed in rags before him. You have earned every consideration at our hands. My men will take you to the hospital, and you shall have the best of care. You have served our princess well. Tomorrow you may feel inclined to talk more freely with me, for I am your friend, Baldos. I'm grateful for that, Baron Dangloss, said Baldos. Then he was led away, and a comfortable cot in the Ganlook hospital soon held his long, fevered frame, while capable hands took care of his wounds. He did not know it, but 2 fully armed soldiers maintained a careful guard outside of his door under instructions from the head of police. Moreover, a picked detail of men sallied forth into the lower pass in search of the goat hunter's followers. But in the meantime, Beverly was conducted to the home of the Countess Rallowitz. Her meeting with the princess was most affectionate. There were tears and laughter and kisses. The whole atmosphere of the place suggested romance to the eager American girl. Downstairs were the royal guards, in the halls were attendants, and everywhere were maidservants and lackeys crowding the home of the kindly countess. At last, comfortable and free of the dust of travel, the 2 friends sat down for a dainty meal. "Oh, I'm so delighted," murmured Beverly for the 100th time. I am appalled when I think of the dangers that you incurred in visiting me. No one but a very foolish American girl could have undertaken such a trip like this. Dear me, Beverly, I should have died if anything had happened to you. Why did you do it?" questioned Princess Yetive. And then they both laughed. "And you went all the way to St. Petersburg just to meet you, dear Yetive," said Beverly, so warmly that the attentive servant forgot his mask of reverence. "Wasn't it ridiculous of me?" said Yetive. "I know Gren would have forbidden it if he had been an Edelweiss when I started out. And more shame to me, the poor fellow is doubtless at the conference with Dawsbergen, utterly ignorant of my escapades. You should have heard the ministry of, and the princess paused, trying to find the English word. "Kick?" said Beverly. "Yes, they objected violently. And do you know, I was finally compelled to issue a private edict to restrain them from sending an appeal to Grenfall away there off on the frontier. Whether or no, my uncle insisted that he should be brought home, a 3 days' journey, in order that he might keep me from going to St. Petersburg. Of course, they could not disobey my edict, and so poor Grenfall is none the wiser, unless he's already back from the conference. If he has, I'm sure he's on the way to Ganlook right this moment." "What a whimsical ruler you are," said Beverly. "Upsetting everything sensible just to rush off hundreds of miles to meet me. And Axphion is trying to capture you too. Goodness! Yet if you must love me." "Oh, I did have a trifling affair of state to lay before the Tsar, my dear. Tomorrow we will be safe and sound in the castle, and it will all be very much worthwhile. You see, Beverly, dear, even princesses enjoy a diversion every now and then. One wouldn't think anything of this adventure in the United States. It's where we are that makes it noticeable. Besides, you traveled as a princess. How did you like it?" And then the conversation related particularly to the advantages of royalty as viewed from one side, and the disadvantages of being royal as regarded from the other. For a long time, Beverly had been wondering how she should proceed in the effort to secure absolute clemency for her friend Baldos. As of yet, she had said nothing to Yetive of her promise to him, made back while she was still posing as a princess. "At any rate," said Beverly, "I'm sure the goat hunters would not have been so faithful and true if they hadn't believed I was a princess," said Beverly, trying to pave the way. "You haven't a man in your kingdom who could be more chivalrous than Baldos." "If he is that kind of a man, then he would treat any woman the same." "Oh, you should have heard him calling me your highness," said Beverly. "He'll hate me if he ever learns that I lied." "Oh, I think that he deceived himself," said Yetive. "Besides, you look as much like a princess as I do." "Well, there is something I want to speak very seriously to you about, Yetive," said Beverly. "You see, Baldos did not want to enter Ganlook with me, but I insisted. He had been so brave and gallant, and he was suffering so intensely. It would have been criminal for me to leave him out there in the wilderness, wouldn't it?" "True, it would have been heartless," said Yetive. "So I just made him come along. That was good, right? Wasn't it? It's what you would have done, no matter who he was or what his objections would have been. Well, you see, yeah, it's like this. He's some sort of a fugitive, not a criminal, but just, somebody that they're hunting for, and I don't know why. He wouldn't tell me, but that was perfectly all right, right?" "And he fought a lion in defense of you," said Yetive. "And I accidentally shot him in the arm," said Beverly. "So, of course, I just had to be reasonable. In order to induce him to come with me to a hospital, I was obliged to guarantee perfect safety to him. His men went back into the hills, all except for old Franz, the driver. Now, see, the trouble is this, Yetive. I'm not the princess, and I can't make good on a single promise that I made to him. He's helpless, and if anything goes wrong, he'll hate me forever." "No, he will hate me," said Yetive, "for I am the princess, and he is none the wiser." "But he will be told that his princess was Beverly Calhoun, a supposedly nice American girl. Don't you see how awkward that'll be for me? Now, Yetive, darling, what I want you to do is to write a note or an order or an edict or whatever to Baron Dangloss, commanding him to treat Baldos as a patient and not a prisoner, and that when he's fully recovered, he is to have the privilege of leaving Ganlook without any reservations." But he may be a desperate offender against the state, Beverly," said Yetive. "If only we knew what he was charged with." "I'm afraid it's probably something dreadful serious," admitted Beverly. "He doesn't look like the sort of man who would engage in a petty undertaking. I'll tell you his story just the same as he told it to me." And then she repeated the meager confession that Baldos had given her. I see no reason why we should hesitate, said the princess. By his own statement, he is not a desperate criminal. You did quite right in promising him protection, my dear. I will sustain you. Do you want to play the princess for him a little longer? Oh, I would love that, said Beverly. Then I will write the order to Dangloss at once. Oh dear, I have forgotten. I don't have an official seal here. Can't you just seal it with your ring? Said Beverly. Oh, I know. Send for Baron Dangloss and have him witness your signature. He can't get away from that, you see. And after we reach Edelweiss, you can fix up a regular edict, seal and all. Ink and paper were then sent for, and the two conspirators lent their wisdom to the task of preparing an order for the salvation of Baldos the fugitive. The order read thusly: to Baron Justo Dangloss, commanding the civic and military police of Graustark. You are hereby informed that Baldos, the man who entered the city with Miss Calhoun, is not to be regarded as a prisoner now or hereafter. He is to be given capable medical and surgical attention until fully recovered, when he is to be allowed to go his way in peace unquestioned. Also, he is to be provided with suitable wearing apparel and made comfortable in every way. Also, the member of his party, now who are in the hills, whose names are unknown to me, are to be accorded every protection, and Franz the driver is to have his freedom if he so desires. And from this edict, there is no recourse until its abatement by a royal decree. Signed, Princess Yetive. There, said the princess, signing her name. I think that will be sufficient. Then she rang for her servant. Send to Baron Dangloss and ask him to come here at once. 15 minutes later, the chief of police stood in the presence of the eager young interpreters of justice. I want you to witness my signature, Baron Dangloss, said the princess. Gladly, he said. Well, here is where I signed, said Yetive, handing him the paper. I don't have to write my name all over again, do I? Not at all, said the Baron gallantly, and he boldly signed his name as a witness. They wouldn't do it like that in the United States, murmured Beverly, who knew a little bit about red tape in Washington. This is a command to you, Baron, said Yetive, handing him the paper with a rare smile. He read it slowly. Then he bit his lip and he coughed. Whatever is wrong, Baron, said Yetive. A transitory emotion, your highness. That is all, he said. But his hand shook as he folded up and put away the paper. And that is the end of chapter 9, where I don't know if the Baron's supposed to be a good guy or if the Baron is supposed to be like maybe an enemy, maybe like a conspirator with what is the name of that other country? Axphian. You know, keeping all of these fake countries' names straight is not the easiest thing in the world. But then again, I managed to keep all sorts of fantasy places straight, so I can probably figure it out. Anyway, that was interesting. I feel like the Baron, chief of police, captain, commander of the army, it seems like he has many hats, is probably going to be an important character. Also, I'm really kind of wondering how on earth Beverly is going to be posing as Princess Yetive, if Princess Yetive is still around, but I guess we'll just have to wait and see on that one. Anyway, thank you so much for listening. I hope that you enjoyed that chapter. It was different, and I will see you tomorrow.